I never thought I'd be competing with my own sister for my husband's attention. Even worse, I never thought my parents would openly say he belonged with her instead of me. But that's exactly what happened. And it shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. It started 2 years ago when I introduced my then-boyfriend, Daniel, to my family. We had been dating for 6 months, and I was head over heels in love. Daniel was warm, charming, and kind, the kind of man who could make friends with anyone in 5 minutes. I couldn't wait for my family to meet him, especially my parents. I thought they'd be thrilled to see me with someone so wonderful. When we arrived at my parents' house for Sunday dinner, everything seemed fine at first. Mom hugged me, Dad shook Daniel's hand, and my younger sister, Lily, smiled brightly. She was 2 years younger than me, with the kind of beauty that made people turn their heads. Long blonde hair, crystal blue eyes, and a bubbly personality. She'd always been the center of attention growing up. I loved her, but I'd be lying if I said I never felt overshadowed. Daniel greeted her politely, and she giggled at something he said. That was normal for Lily. She giggled at everything. But as the night went on, I started noticing little things. Every time Daniel spoke, Lily leaned forward, laughing at his jokes louder than necessary. She kept asking him questions about his job, his hobbies, even his favorite childhood memories. At first, I brushed it off. I told myself she was just being friendly. But when we sat down to eat, I caught my mom exchanging a look with my dad. And that look, it made my stomach twist. The first red flag came a few weeks later. I was at my parents' house alone, helping Mom with some laundry. Out of nowhere, she said, "You know, Daniel and Lily have a lot in common." I laughed. "What do you mean?" "Well," she said casually, "they're both outgoing, both love the outdoors, and they have the same sense of humor. You're more reserved, honey." I frowned. "So, that doesn't mean anything." Mom shrugged, like she hadn't just dropped a weird comment. "I'm just saying, sometimes compatibility is more than just love." I tried to ignore it, but the seed had been planted. And it didn't help that every time we were all together, I felt like Daniel and Lily were in their own little bubble. They'd talk about hiking trails, music, or some random TV show they both liked, while I sat there feeling like a third wheel in my own relationship. Fast forward to our wedding day. It was beautiful, or at least it should have been. But even then, Lily managed to somehow be in the spotlight. She was my maid of honor, and she looked stunning in her dress. During the reception, I noticed my dad watching Daniel and Lily dance. Yes, dance together during one of the songs. It wasn't inappropriate exactly, but it wasn't the kind of dance you'd expect between your sister and your new husband either. They laughed, spun each other around, and for a split second it felt like they were the couple everyone should be watching. That night after we got home, I told Daniel it bothered me. He laughed. "Babe, come on. She's your sister. We were just having fun." I wanted to believe him, so I dropped it. But deep down, something felt off. The real nightmare began last month. We'd been married for 1.5 years when Daniel and I decided to host a small family barbecue. My parents, Lily, and a few friends came over. Everyone was chatting in the backyard while Daniel manned the grill. I went inside to grab drinks, and when I came back, I froze. Daniel and Lily were sitting way too close together on the patio couch, laughing about something on his phone. My mom was watching them with this soft, approving smile, and then she said something that made my blood run cold. "You two look so good together." I thought I'd misheard. "What?" I asked, setting down the drinks. Mom turned to me like it was nothing. I said, "You two, Daniel and Lily, you look like you belong together. Don't they, Jim?" She asked my dad. My dad nodded without hesitation. "Yeah, they have a certain chemistry." The air left my lungs. He's my husband," I said sharply. Mom just laughed. "Oh, honey, don't be so sensitive. We're just saying you're very different from Daniel. Sometimes, opposites don't always attract long-term." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own parents, the people who were supposed to support my marriage, were basically saying my husband would be better off with my sister. That night, I confronted Daniel. "Did you hear what they said?" I asked. pacing the living room. "Yeah," he said slowly, "but I think they were just joking." That didn't sound like a joke to me. They've always compared you two, and now they're saying you belong together. What am I supposed to think? Daniel ran a hand through his hair. Look, I can't control what they say. And Lily, she's your sister. I'm not interested in her. But the thing is, he didn't sound angry. He sounded uncomfortable. Like he knew there was truth to what I was saying, but didn't want to admit it. Things only got worse after that. A week later, I went to my parents' house to drop off some things, and Lily was there with Daniel. He had stopped by to help Dad fix the lawnmower. But when I walked into the kitchen, they were sitting at the table drinking coffee, laughing about some inside joke. Neither of them noticed me at first. When they finally did, Lily's smile faltered for just a second, like she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't. My mom walked in and said, "Oh, good, you're all here. We were just talking about how Daniel and Lily should go hiking together next weekend." I blinked. Why would they do that without me? Mom shrugged. "Because you don't like hiking, sweetie. No harm in them doing something they both enjoy." I left soon after, feeling like the walls were closing in on me. I didn't know if I was overreacting or if something was actually happening right in front of me. The breaking point came last Friday. We were all having dinner at my parents' house again. I was already tense, but I tried to keep the peace. Halfway through the meal, my dad said, completely seriously, "You know, if you and Lily had met first, Daniel, I bet you two would have ended up together." I dropped my fork. "Excuse me?" Dad shrugged. "It's not an insult, it's just the truth. You and Daniel have more in common. You're a better match, personality-wise." I looked at Daniel, expecting him to shut it down immediately, but he just smiled awkwardly and said nothing. That silence hurt more than anything. That night, I cried in the car all the way home. Daniel tried to put his arm around me, but I shrugged him off. "Do you want to be with her?" I asked quietly. He looked shocked. "No, of course not. I married you." "Then why don't you tell them to stop? Why don't you defend me?" He didn't have an answer. Now I don't know what to do. My parents are convinced my husband and sister would be the perfect couple, and every time we're together, it feels like they're trying to make it happen. I'm scared, because I can't shake the feeling that one day they might succeed. I thought my parents couldn't hurt me any more than they already had, but I was wrong. The weeks after that horrible dinner were a blur of silent phone calls, awkward texts from my sister Emily, and cold stares from my mom whenever she dropped by, unexpectedly. My husband Ryan was doing his best to be supportive, but I could tell he was growing tired. Every time I brought up what happened, he would sigh and say, "Babe, we just need to ignore them. They'll get over it." But they weren't getting over it. If anything, things were getting worse. It all came to a head on Emily's birthday. I didn't want to go at all, but Ryan convinced me. "It's just a family party," he said. "If we skip it, they'll say you're avoiding them. Let's just show our faces and leave early." So I put on a fake smile, dressed in the nicest thing I could find, and prepared myself for the emotional equivalent of walking into a lion's den. From the moment we walked through the door, I knew I was in trouble. My mom greeted Ryan with a huge hug longer than normal and barely acknowledged me. My dad shook Ryan's hand like he was meeting his new son-in-law for the first time, and completely ignored the fact that I was already his daughter's wife. And then came Emily. She walked in wearing a dress I had never seen before, her hair curled perfectly, her makeup done in a way that felt calculated. And when she saw Ryan, she lit up. "Ryan, you made it," she said, hugging him a little too tightly, lingering just a second too long. I froze. Ryan gave a polite hug back and stepped away, but my parents were watching with smiles as if they were witnessing a scene from a romantic movie. After dinner, my mom suggested we play a fun couples game, except instead of pairing me with my husband, she paired Ryan with Emily. "Just for fun," she said with a smirk. Everyone laughed except me. Ryan tried to laugh it off, but I could see the discomfort in his eyes. Emily, however, was loving every second. She leaned into him, whispered in his ear, and laughed at everything he said, even if it wasn't funny. When the game ended, my mom said loudly, "See? You two make such a great team, don't they?" She looked around the room, and several relatives nodded. I wanted to scream. The final straw came when I walked into the kitchen to get a drink and overheard my mom talking to Emily. "She's just not right for him, honey. You and Ryan, now that's a match made in heaven." I froze behind the doorway. Emily's voice was quieter, but I caught her reply. "Mom, I can't just steal her husband." My mom actually laughed. "People break up all the time. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be." I stepped into the kitchen before I could stop myself. "Wow," I said, my voice shaking. "That's what you really think of me? That I'm just some placeholder until my husband realizes he belongs with my sister?" My mom didn't even flinch. "Sweetheart, I'm just looking out for everyone's happiness." "By trying to ruin my marriage?" I snapped. Emily looked uncomfortable, but not nearly enough for someone whose own sister had just caught her in that kind of conversation. Ryan appeared behind me, sensing the tension. "What's going on?" he asked. I turned to him. "You tell me, because apparently my mom thinks you should be with my sister." His eyes widened. "What? That's insane." But my mom just crossed her arms. "Is it? Or are you just too scared to admit it?" Ryan pulled me out of the kitchen and into the hallway. "This is ridiculous," he said. "Your mom has lost her mind. Let's just leave." But I didn't move. I was shaking too much. "I can't keep doing this, Ryan. I can't keep pretending like they're just eccentric. They're cruel. They want us to fail." Ryan nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's time to cut them off." The words felt like a lifeline and a dagger at the same time. Cutting off my parents, the people who raised me, but also the people who were actively trying to destroy my marriage. I realized in that moment that I had a choice: protect my relationship or keep letting my family tear me apart from the inside. We left the party without saying goodbye. That night, I blocked my parents' numbers. I thought it would feel like relief, but instead I cried until my chest ached. Ryan held me, telling me over and over, "It's going to be okay." But a part of me wondered if it ever would be. It's been 6 months since I last spoke to my parents. At first, they tried to contact me through friends and extended relatives. Then they started sending letters, some begging me to come back to the family, others doubling down and insisting I was keeping Ryan from his true happiness. I didn't respond to any of them. Emily hasn't reached out directly, but I know from social media that she still sees my parents regularly. And yes, they still post pictures of her with captions like "our perfect girl." Ryan and I have grown closer since cutting them off. We've started new traditions, celebrated holidays, just the two of us, and even started talking about moving to a different city to really get a fresh start. But every now and then, when I see an old photo of my family, I feel this ache. Because no matter how toxic they were, they're still my parents. And I know deep down that if they called me tomorrow and genuinely apologized, part of me would want to believe them. But I also know I can't let them back into my life if they still believe my husband belongs with my sister. I'm sharing this because I want people to understand sometimes. The people who are supposed to love you the most can hurt you in ways you never thought possible. It's not just about jealousy or competition. It's about control. My parents wanted to decide who was right for my husband, as if my own feelings didn't matter. But I've learned something important. Family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, trust, and love. And if my parents can't give me that, then maybe they don't deserve to be in my life. For now, Ryan and I are focusing on us. And maybe one day I'll have a family that supports me, even if I have to build it from scratch.